Bluff City Media presents the Two Buck Sports Show. Stepping up to the microphone are your hosts, Drew Gann and Rusty Witten. Now, let's get to the show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Live from the Laundry Room here with me, your co-host, Buckets, checking in for the final time from Birmingham, Alabama, down here from Mama's Surgeries. I'm with my colleague, co-host, as always, Uncle Buck. What's happening, Uncle Buck? How are you, sir?
Man, I'm telling you, it has been 3 Mondays this Thursday. It is Thursday night, 8:45 God's standard time zone here in North Mississippi, and we're getting the sucker off the ground. And
Finally.
you know, it's kind of like we're just getting the ball. We're just all day. It feels like we've been just trying to get this rolling downhill. We've been pushing on this sled. Finally, here at 8:45, we're making traction here, and we're getting it rolling.
Between work, between personal life, between different things, it's just kept us from recording when we wanted to. So you get a $2 after dark. I'm, sitting here, got my tall glass. It's not all whiskey, but there's some in there, trying to get settled in for the night and get this show going, brother. So I appreciate you.
Straight unleaded black coffee right here.
Attaboy. Appreciate you hanging with me, Uncle Buck, today, as it was kind of a hectic day for both of us, so we get this thing off the ground. But we always start with our best in beef, so why don't we go ahead and do that?
Yeah, this is one of those days you've got to remind yourself what has gone right for you this week. Because for me, I mean, my kids have been out of school this week, and my wife has been out of school because she's a school teacher, and that really always, it's got its pluses and minuses, but the pluses by far outweigh the minuses. Like, yes, our house is kind of a wreck, but I get to come home every day. The kids are having fun. Today, they took a little field trip with all their cousins out to the pumpkin patch and got them to have themselves a good time. And I just love watching the kids have fun, And so I ended up taking off on Monday. I had a doctor's appointment. And so I got in a little later than I thought I would get in. And so I decided to take the rest of the day off, and we just kind of yard sale, cleaned out a little bit. We just got to have a good week here at the house and just hanging out. So yeah, I like the summers. I like these little breaks in the school year, just because I like to come home and eat lunch with the fam. And everybody's running, playing, and having a good time.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen y'all put a lot of stuff up for sale this week through your garage postings and garage sales and Facebook Marketplace. Drew is now an aromatherapy salesman. I don't know if you people know that or not, but check out his Facebook if you'd like to learn more.
I did not want to get into this. I did not want to get into this.
You knew I was going to bring it up,
yeah.
Bro. You knew I would. I opened Facebook the minute, because it said just now, the minute it got posted, and I screenshot it and sent it to Drew and said, "Oh, we're a salesman now, huh?"
Shut up, Rusty. We'll get to it, I guess.
For me, the best of the week is obviously Mama Lee, man. She's been kind of rocking this whole thing. For friends of mine, people who don't know, people follow the show, Mama Lee had a little bit of brain surgery this week, and she's absolutely crushing it. Handled it like a champ. It was a very successful surgery. The surgeon was very pleased. She's got a minimal scar on her head. Didn't have to shave a ton of hair, which we're very thankful for. And we go back tomorrow. She's got one more surgery to wrap it up for the week, but she's been a champ, man. She slept a lot this week. Obviously, hadn't felt the best, but she's the toughest lady I know. She's handling it like a rock star. Mama Lee, we love you. We're proud of you, and just absolutely crushing it. So best of the week is Mama Lee and how well she's doing.
Yeah, it's been one of the best parts of my week too, because I consider her a mother figure for me. I love that woman almost as much as I love my own mom. And so lots of fun has been had with Mama Lee. And when you hear, the diagnosis that we got, I say we because I'm part of your family.
Absolutely.
But it was a diagnosis that nobody ever wants to hear. And when we get to the point we're at now, where there's brain surgery, and the brain surgery works to the point where it reduces all of the tremors and stuff almost immediately. That's such a miracle, man. So happy that everything went out okay. Obviously, still our thoughts and prayers for the second procedure tomorrow. But so far, man, so encouraging. So happy.
Yeah, I walked into recovery and she's just crying, and she said, "My tremors stopped during surgery." It just was like an emotional wreck. There was somebody was cutting onions in there. I don't know what happened, but just to see Mama being so elated for that, and then just knowing that there's healing coming for her and that we're going to get over the hump for sure. It's just awesome. And Drew, I told her in recovery, I was like, Drew was checking in on you, wanted to make sure you're all right. She said, well, tell him his dance partner will be back before he knows it. So she's in good spirits and recovering well. So I appreciate all the thoughts and prayers and check-ins on Mama Lee for sure.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to my beef.
This might be my favorite beef you've ever had.
My wife is a germaphobe. Okay. Those of you that know me and know our family intimately, it doesn't take long for us to realize that my wife's a germaphobe. Well, she's also like the kindest person in the world. And so a coworker of hers is trying to sell rainbow air freshener or air filter / vacuum. Everybody's been asked to sit in one of these pitches before.
Mm-hmm.
And so out of the kindness of my wife's heart, we sat there. And so first thing it's like, all right, so you're here. So all you got to do to get this free air freshener or dehumidifier is just post it on Facebook. So he says, Miss Gann, this is a really good salesman. Let me see your phone. We'll post it on Facebook. I deleted Facebook. So then he's like, Mr. Gann, can I have your phone? And I was like, I just gave him that look like, I guess. So then he proceeds to like make a post on my Facebook. And I was just like, I just deleted the app after. I was like, I had so much shame. I was like, okay, I'm done with Facebook for a little while. And so then we sat through a 2-hour presentation on air fresheners in which he just inundated me and my wife with how disgusting our house is. And so mistakes were made.
It was incredible. I couldn't have timed that any better. I opened Facebook and just now there's Drew and Haley smiling like proud parents.
No, that's like where you're wrong.
Vaporizer.
Did you look at the look on my face? It was not a smile. It was a.
I don't know. It was a little more energetic than that. But
no,
God bless Haley. She was grinning from ear to ear, thinking like, this is just the best thing ever, because that's just who she is, and she's going to support her friends and all. But it cracked me up to see that.
I'm just telling you, Rusty, the man was a good salesman, and so here before too long, you and Maggie are going to be sitting down for a presentation.
We're homeless, man. We, neither of us have a place to live, so I'm sorry.
Oh, I disagree. Y'all are having a presentation made it at the Gann house, okay? So, because now we're in debt. So what's your beef of the week?
Well, that's apparently now that I got to sit through an aromatherapy presentation. But, no, Clark and I took advantage of some downtime with Mama today. We played a little golf and had a good time. Golf was played. It wasn't the best round of golf, but we finished very strong. We parred like 3 holes in a row to finish out. And we're getting ready to leave. It's starting to get dark. We're on 18, and Clark hits one of the – it is down to it. Like, I'm down 2 strokes going into the last hole. And like I said, we ultimately tied, so finished really well. Yeah. But we had to look for his ball for a little bit because it was in some trees and stuff. And there was this group of young kids behind us. And we're out in the fairway. We're getting up on the green. And the course, like even from the tips, is only 5,800 yards. So it's not a big course. Well, they decided to go ahead and tee off because it is starting to get dark, but you can still see fine. Well, They hit in amongst us. And Clark and I got paired up with this other group of 2 guys, Matt and Austin, cool guys. And Austin's girlfriend was there. And the first shot lands within 5 feet of her. I mean, it almost hits her.
Oh, no.
And then we turn and look. I'm like, what? Like, hey, don't hit into us. What are you doing? We're here. And they tee off again. And it lands within about 10, 15 yards of me. So I turn around, and I put mine up on the green. I walk over to his ball. And the best shot I hit all day, I pured his back at him into the pond in front of him. Just best shot I've hit all day. And the guy, Matt, was like, yeah, don't hit into us. And they were like, play faster. And we're like, dude, we're right on time. Like we finished in just under 4 hours. Like we played 18 holes in just under 4 hours. Yeah. Not like we were playing slow. Well, I mean, that's bad enough. Like you got to understand etiquette. I understand you run out of time, but like there's one thing you're running out of daylight. There's the other thing of injuring somebody. Like,
right.
If you hit somebody with a golf ball, I've been hit with a golf ball before. It hurts like a mother.
Yes.
And especially like you hit somebody in the head, like Austin's girlfriend being that close.
You hit that woman in the head, and you're going to get 4 dudes on you. Yeah.
Well, I thought so. We finish up. We're leaving. Whatever. Clark pulls the cart up. I go get the truck, pull the truck up, and get golf clubs in. Well, I get out of the truck, and Austin, one of the guys playing with us, is yelling and cussing at those guys, and they're going at it. And I get out of the truck. I'm like, Clark, is this going down? Did they start it? And he was like, no, it's Austin. He's drunk. He started yelling at him, telling him, meet him in the parking lot. We're out. I was like, yep, we're out. I was like, I'm in. If they had started it, I was in. But the fact that he started it, I was out.
I'm going to tell you, I'm all for defending one's honor and helping out a friend finish a fight that he did not start.
Yep.
However, I've got to know these folks for longer than 18 holes. You know,
I mean, that's it. That's it. And like, don't be the instigator, right? Like, it was even. Right. They hit it amongst us. I hit his Pro V1 into the pond behind us. Like, we're even at that point.
Both of you got your smart remarks in. Both of you hit your balls. I mean, it was handled at that point. It was handled by golf standards.
Yeah, so, it was. And let me tell you something. Go home. That was the best golf. And my real beef of the week is that was the best golf shot I've ever hit. It like of all day, like it was straight, it was pure. It was about 125 yards, dead middle of the pond with a big splash. Like it was the most dramatic thing it could have possibly been. I'm like, man, I used that shot then, and I didn't have it earlier.
No, see, I disagree. That's when you want to have your best shot.
You don't want to chunk
when it. I mean, you're stepping up to the plate at that point. The pressure's on. If you would have hit that ball back at them and shanked it, like you would have lost all manhood. Like it was the most frustrating thing for me was I played in my one golf tournament of the year a couple months ago or a month or so ago. We talked about it on the show, and I played the best golf I've ever played in my life. I was hitting it long and straight off the tee box. I've never driven well ever, except for the one time my boss and like a board member, like the big wigs at my company, are up on the hill looking down at us. They both stopped just to see us, and I shanked one. I mean, worm burner, man.
Yeah,
just mowing the grass with this drive. And I was like, the one drive that I shake is right there when everybody's watching. So I guess I'll never get invited like the big wig golf outings.
That's it, because they saw your one hit. I mean, I hit a few good shots, but the best one, and it when it counted, your boy performed under pressure. When it counted, I pured that ball just dead straight in the middle of that pond. So, like you said, per golf standards, it was handled. So that's the worst thing that happens to me this week. Thankfully, I didn't get hit. We'll be all right. But, hey, thanks for hanging with us. Hopefully, didn't waste too much of your time as we catch up, as two best friends of 10-plus years tend to do when we get on the phone. So while you're here, you made it this far, go ahead and click subscribe, turn notifications on YouTube. Also, in another browser, keep this one playing so you can still listen in. But in another browser, go ahead and go to bluffcitymedia.co. Leave the M for the M. bluffcitymedia.co. Hang out with us. Get access to the Discord, all the great content creators on this show. We don't have a commercial anymore, so that's why you're getting this lame ad from me. Kenny, if you're here, hit us with a commercial, brother. We're drowning here.
1 hour of commercial-free sports talk brought to you by Bluff City Media and the $2 Sports Show.
That's it. Where else are you going to find that on the interwebs? So, Drew, we are in the best time of the year. We have Memphis Grizzlies basketball. It's preseason, but it's still basketball. And we have college football. First up, the Memphis Grizzlies, who are currently 1-0, though we're down, as of this recording, 7 to the Charlotte Hornets early in the fourth quarter in the preseason. You know, it's been talked about on this network quite a bit already, but thinking back to that first game, was there anything outside of Ja's block and mysterious ankle roll, anything that stood out to you?
Yeah, not particularly. The offense does look different. It was something that we've wondered. Like, there's always been this talk like about this rejuvenated, cutting-edge offense that they're installing in training camp. And I was curious as to whether or not me, as a layman, non-basketball coach, would see it. And it definitely looked different. There was one play in particular early on where there was a lot of movement, and it ended up with Desmond Bain going from the high post, the corner of the free throw line, and cutting directly across the lane to catch a mid-range jumper. And I was like, it just seemed like it was like perfect.
Right.
It's like how it was supposed to look, because in that motion, it created a very high percentage shot that was open in a half-court offense by a player that you knew could hit it. Now, I know analytics don't love long twos, but I want Desmond Bain taking open shots at that point anytime he can get them. You know, in a half-court game late in the shot clock, if you can generate that look, man, I'm all in.
Yeah.
Zach Edey looked fine. You know, he's going to have some struggles this year. And at some points, he looked like he didn't know how to move in the NBA. Like, his arms were moving slower than the rest of the game was. So like it's just there's an adjustment that's going to come. It's how to use your arms in the right way. It's the same thing Jaren did. I mean, Jaren's got a 7'2", 7'3" wingspan, and he fouled a lot early on. And it's just because his arms didn't start in the right spot. And when you're that big and that long, you've got to start in the right spot. So he's got some stuff he's going to have to iron out.
Wayno talked about that in the comments of Daily Grind this week. He said the same thing, right? Like there's going to be some early growing pains. And I wonder if Edey's going to be similar to Jaren, where he does foul a lot early on, because you can be the best defender in college, but a lot of those guys are going to sell State Farm. Like not all those guys are world-class basketball players. It's going to be different in the NBA.
Yeah, but also you're going to be an elite NCAA defender at 7'5" because you can stand in the lane. That was Hasheem Thabit's thing. Like, okay, he was player of the year, he was defensive player of the year, but all he did was stand in front of the basket.
Right.
Edey's got more to his game, and so he's going to have to learn to slide in and out and to rotate maybe a little bit earlier, or when you're in a scrum, you've got to figure out how to not flail your arms. And I don't, as somebody that's 5'5" and not played basketball at a high level ever, like that's something I can't tell you. I can just say by looking at it, the fouls were fouls, and they're going to be fouls all season long. So there's something that he's going to have to work out to maybe streamline that motion with his arms and rebounding and defending without fouling.
For sure. But, you know, the block looked good. We had a lob from Ja. The pick and roll game looked really good. Like there were highlights to go with some of the struggles that he had for sure.
You know, you talk just real quick about the offense. One of the things that stood out to me as a big plus to this offense was, do you know who threw the most lobs to Zach Edey in game one?
Was it Pitt?
Luke Kennard.
Luke Kennard.
Luke Kennard in offense threw more lobs to Zach Edey than Ja did. Ja threw one, and Luke Kennard threw two. And so I just feel like this offense is going to put a lot of people in roles that they can get assists or get buckets, or, you know.
If you had to guess who had the most assists in the game versus the Mavericks, just had to guess.
I would say Scottie Pippen Jr., but he turned the ball over a fair amount. And so I'm going to, if that's not him, I don't think that's
him. It was him. It was Pip.
Okay.
He had 6, but Marcus Smart had 5.
He had 5 turnovers.
So Marcus had 5 assists and he had 3 turnovers. But like seeing Marcus be able to facilitate like that makes me feel better about Ja being out for the rest of the preseason. And if there is any bumps in the road down the road, that Marcus can take over at the 1 and be that guy. Brandon Clark also had 4 assists. I love Brandon Clark being a facilitator from the post, man. Like, you know, like an entry pass and a kick back out to a Dez or a Luke or a Jalen Wells for a 3. Like, I'm here for that from BC.
He's always fit really well in that, because he loves that short roll out of the pick and roll, and that 2-man game. He's always been really good with a short roll. You know, not getting all the way to the basket, but getting to that floater or finding Jaren. Him and Jaren have amazing numbers when they're on the floor together, and it's because of that. So I'm really excited about it. And the thing with the offense too is, if it bogs down and if it takes a little while to kind of get rolling and to get polished, you've always got Ja. I mean, you can run that 1-5 pick and roll and play pick and roll basketball all day if you need to. You still got shooters to kick to. You've still got Edey or Jaren rolling. Like, you've still got that. You don't if the offense bogs down while they work the kinks out, you've still got Ja Morant. I mean,
one of the most athletic point guards in the NBA, as voted on by the GMs in the recent NBA survey. And then tonight they're playing the Hornets as of this recording. Desmond Bane's our leading scorer. You know the second leading scorer is without looking?
I have not even turned this game on. So I would say, given the fact there's no Jaren, there's obviously no Ja, I'd say Jitty.
I don't know if I can make this joke anymore, but it is one Jay Huff Daddy, man. Huff has got 12 points off the bench on 4 of 8 shooting. He's got 3 blocks coming off the bench. Santi's got 10 points and 5 assists. With Pip, he's got 5 assists, but he's got 3 turnovers again. We've got to get that under control. Like, he turns the ball over at a high rate. He didn't do that last year or this summer. It's probably just some rust in its early preseason. I'm glad he's doing that now, getting those out of the way. But we got to get those turnovers under control.
The longer he goes without getting a full-time contract, the more likely I think it is that the Grizzlies make a trade. Like, obviously, they're just not convinced. And I was convinced. I think a lot of Grizzlies fans are convinced. Sure. I'm still convinced at this point. But obviously, they know something we don't. And there is something to the fact that this is officially the window to go win. And if you're going to make a move, that's the kind of the position group you need to go make a move in. And no matter how good Scottie Pippen is, if you're going to make a move like that, whoever you bring in is going to be better. Like, that's not a knock on Scottie Pippen.
I don't know, man. I just still feel like there is a chance that we're just waiting to sign Scottie when we have to. Like, I don't know that we need to sign him right now. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there's still an opportunity for us to make a trade, make a sign, something, keep Scottie and sign him after the first of the year. I agree. I think, you know, we maybe, knock on wood, have our big situation figured out with a combination of, you know, Edey, Jaren, BC, Santi, and then Jay Huff if he works out because he got 50 games with him. I think we need some help in some of the backcourt for sure. It's backup point guards, some wing scoring, something.
What the kind of the first alarm is Monday night for game 1 against the Mavericks. We were down Gigi, we were down Vince, and the first person off the bench was not Scottie Pippen, it was Jitty.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, like there's something there. Now I know Jitty does a lot of things okay, but I thought that was probably going to be Scottie Pippen Jr.
And tonight, so far, with 7.5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, Jitty has played 22 minutes. That's the most behind Jay Huff at 23. Dez and Santi have played 25. Pip has played 21. So Jitty got the start tonight. Your starting lineup with Santi, Zach Edey, Marcus Smart, John Conchar, and Desmond Bane. I still think.
Read me Edey's stat line.
He's 19 minutes, 2 for 8 from the field, 0 for 3 from 3, 1 for 2 free throws, 1 offensive, 2 defensive rebounds. I wish that was better. No assists, no steals, 1 block, 1 turnover, but only 1 foul. He's a minus 11 in the plus minus.
Well, this is a very much a team that's not a competitive preseason basketball team right now with all the people that are starting, and so
for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely something to look at.
Yeah, I still think that there is a lot of room for improvement. This is the second game of the preseason, a new offense, a new coaching system, a whole new reset.
Not worried yet.
Not at all. I mean, and we talked about Charlotte yesterday morning on the Daily Grind, or Wednesday morning on the Daily Grind. Like, they're a team that's interesting. They've got some pieces, and it's the preseason. Like, who cares? All right, Grizzlies are back playing basketball, but this time of the year is the best time of the year, Uncle Buck, because the world's greatest sport. What other sport are you going to get a team wearing a red helmet with big white googly eyes on it, like the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers wearing tonight? Elite level headgear, Beautiful. Elite level. Also, sidebar, like I know we're talking NFL later, but the Thursday night football game tonight is the Seahawks and the 49ers, and they're both wearing their throwback uniforms. If the Seahawks don't make these their full-time permanent uniforms, it's a crime against humanity because those things are so slick. I love the silver helmets with the blue jerseys, man. They look so good.
Oh, yeah. Well, I haven't turned that game on either. So, I mean, just behind the scenes, like I had about 40 people come over to my house like 15 minutes before we started, so I haven't watched anything. I thought you were going to say the throwbacks were like the Sean Alexander Teals, and I'm not a big fan of those.
No, not those, but the early night, like Ricky Waters, like Bosworth, those teams. Yeah. Those are phenomenal. Love those. But I think the best uniform of the weekend, if you haven't looked them up, look up Oregon's blackout jerseys for the game Saturday. They've got the highlighted, like the green highlights. Dude, I'm telling you what, man. They did it after Call of Duty. There was when they announced them, they had the Call of Duty with the night vision goggles. Those might be my favorite uniforms of the year. They're black on black with some chrome and green accents, like chef's kiss. Well done, Oregon. They've got a million uniform combos, and night might be the best.
I'm biased, I know it, but I think that the Ole Miss LSU game every year is uniform porn, if I'm just being honest with you. LSU's homes with the yellow pants, white top, yellow helmets those are top 5 uniform in football. Sure. And Ole Miss is wearing their gray with their navy tops. Their red tops, which I love. That's my favorite one. and
I don't love
the
second,
Navy
and that's
helmet.
just because it's Ole Miss. I don't love secondary colors. Like for me, like what moves the needle for me is when Ole Miss goes navy gray. Like that is Ole Miss to me. I like the navy helmets, and maybe call me like old school or vanilla, but I like the navy gray look for Ole Miss.
You don't like secondary colors, yeah? That's
I don't like
that's your childhood Alabama fan coming out in you.
Maybe. I didn't like it. I don't like when the Bears wear the orange jerseys or the Dolphins wear the orange jerseys. I like when it's like your primary color is still your main uniform color.
Yeah, but Ole Miss is one of those too. Like their primary colors are red and blue. Like they're not just red and white or just blue and like everything is equal parts red and blue.
Yeah. But I don't know if you saw this. You probably should say this in the NFL section, but the Saints got voted the best uniform combination in all of professional sports this week.
Yeah.
When they wore those black helmets last week were fire.
No.
I love the black helmets.
No, I wholeheartedly. Those uniforms are one of the best. They're standard. Either they're all white with the gold helmets or the all black with the gold helmets. Is probably the best uniform in football. But if you're good at something, don't change it. And those black helmets were awful. I hated them.
I disagree.
And I think part of the reason why I hate them though is that your most fierce rivalry was with the Falcons who wear a black helmet. Like I hated it. I hated every bit of it.
And somebody on the outside looking in, I thought they looked pretty clean. But pro football to come. College football is up, and what a wild weekend we had last weekend. And Uncle Buck, I think we're in for another wild weekend this weekend, man. We had all the upsets last week. We got more on the horizon this week. You know, last week was going to be kind of one of those make or break weeks, and that we didn't even know we were going to have. You had 5 of the top 11 teams, almost 6 with Miami having to pull out a late one, getting beat, man. And so that's going to lead into some of my real and counterfeit for the week. But, like, guys, coming up this weekend, I don't care what you have planned for Saturday, cancel it. It's going to be a day of college football. You've got Mississippi State, Georgia, which, you know,
you're going to start the hype train with that one.
I'm getting it out of the way. Let's get the Red River rivalry at 2:30 with Texas playing Oklahoma. Oklahoma's the home team in that. You got Penn State, USC. You've got Florida, Tennessee, which is maybe not as big as it has been, but that could be a sneaky good game. It's a rivalry game. Then the nightcap, buddy, at 6:30, you have both Ohio State and Oregon. Ohio State travels to Eugene for the first time as a conference game. What a phenomenal football game that's going to be. Also, at 6:30, the Ole Miss Rebels travel to Death Valley, where dreams go to die, and play LSU. Both teams with one loss, top 15 SEC matchup. What a wild day of college football we have coming up, sir.
Yeah. And we can't. I'm sorry. I know it's Friday when you're listening to this. It's old news. I can't go another minute without talking about Vanderbilt beating Alabama because you're talking about like things we do like preseason. It's like hot takes. What's your boldest take of the year? Nobody in the world is bold enough to say that Vanderbilt is going to beat Alabama. Like we've done this. We've seen Vanderbilt. We're talking about Vanderbilt being relegated. Like they don't care. Nobody goes to watch them. Their stadium has been in construction for a decade. Like, but Diego Pavia, man, Diego Pavia was amazing. And Alabama allowed 40 points to Vanderbilt. Like Vanderbilt did exactly the opposite of what I have barbecued Mark Stoops about and barbecued Antonio Pierce about. It was 4th and 1 from the 50, and they didn't punt. They had a lead at home. They didn't punt. No, play action go route, touchdown. And I lost it. I'm talking about that. I was beating my chest because that is stones. That's how you go win a football game. The best player on that field all game was Diego Pavia, and you went and said, Diego Pavia, go win it.
And, you know, for the entirety of the 17 years that Nick Saban was in Alabama, in 4 games, they gave up 13 points to Vanderbilt. They had 13 points at the end of the first quarter. This is the first time in 23 years that Vanderbilt has beat Alabama. This was the first time in 65 attempts that they beat a top 5 team. They were 0-65 coming into that game. They are now 1-65. The goalpost made an appearance on Broadway, interrupting conservatively 20 to 25 bachelorette parties. Somewhere on Broadway, bachelorette party bought $30 fireball shots and took them with the goalpost before it ended up in the Cumberland River. It is now a landmark on Google Maps. You can look at the end of Broadway, or it comes in where downtown terminates at the Cumberland River. The goalpost is there on Google Maps. What an electric scene. And the post-game, as good as Diego Pavia was on the field, his post-game interview was electric.
He dropped an F-bomb. I mean, just testosterone at an all-time high.
He was praising God at the beginning, dropping an F-bomb in the middle, hugging family at the end. It was electric.
I mean, you checked all the boxes. And I just felt so good for Vanderbilt fans because you're such a punchline. And for good reason. You know, Alabama should have never lost to Vanderbilt. You can give Vanderbilt all the credit you want to, but you can't give Alabama is not blameless. Like, go beat Vanderbilt. What are you doing? But it was just I'm glad that they got to have that moment. And I'm glad they got to have it at home. Because, yes, it would have been a bigger win if you did it in Bryant-Denny, but have that moment at home. Tear down the field goal post at home.
All 55 fans rushed the field. They had more fans toting the goalpost down Broadway than they did at the game. Like, just a wild scene. It was so funny.
They did the wide shot. Like, it was almost like showing, like, they wanted to show, like, the fans inching towards the field there. And they did the wide shot, and it's like 75% crimson. It's like, oh man, like, and they very politely took the stairs down to the field.
But the best part was as they were storming the field, the media guys played the Nick Saban quote of saying it's tough to play everywhere in the SEC except Vanderbilt as they were storming the field after beating Alabama.
And props to that because nobody thought they were going to win. And for the media ops people, the game ops, like,
have that queued up
to be ready, because it didn't take. I know they have to be prepared, but how many times do you think Vanderbilt's mailed in like, oh, we're not even going to make a winner's graphic on the game against Alabama? Like, please.
And they had that joker ready. I mean, like, horn sounds, people rush, video plays. Like, it was all time, man.
It was just as good as when Arkansas beats Tennessee in Reynolds Razorback Stadium, and all you hear through the loudspeakers is Rocky Top.
Oh, yeah. What an electric scene. And just that's why college football is the best. The European mind could not comprehend that. Y'all can have soccer. Like, that is something when you play your rival's biggest song or a clip of your rival talking about how bad you are after you just beat them. Like, it just, like, man, like, I've got chills, man. It's got my blood pressure up tonight. What a great, great scene. You had Will Rogers, redemption for Will Rogers in Washington, you know, former Mississippi State Bulldog quarterback, lead the Huskies over the Michigan Wolverines in a revenge game for the national title game last year. It was good to see Will Rogers get that win. You know, Drew, it's part of my real versus counterfeit, but like, we'll go ahead and kind of transition into some of that because we've talked about a few of them. But first, in our real versus counterfeit segment here, where we give you what is real about college football and what is fake about college football. Drew, I want to know, is Diego Pavia the greatest Vanderbilt athlete of all time?
Oh, the greatest. I mean, he's definitely, like, of all Vanderbilt athletes ever, he is now the only one that will never pay for a drink in Nashville again.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
like Jay Cutler's time's gone, you know, like, I'm sure they still love Jay Cutler, and, you know, they love Zach Cunningham was an amazing linebacker for them. But, like, no, Diego Pavia,
same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the baseball guys is kind of what you think about with Vandy, like David Price and Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker. Like, no, Diego Pavia, man.
Yeah, I think he's top tier Vanderbilt. He is Vanderbilt royalty now for sure.
Yes.
Like, he may play one season at Vanderbilt and have a statue built of him outside of that stadium. Number two, this one I think this is pretty obvious, man. This is low hanging fruit. I'm setting you up on a D here. Knock this out of the park. Ashton Jeanty is the next great NFL running back to come out of college football.
Well, first off, you're going to have to tell me, like, what year Ashton Jeanty is, because
he's a junior. Like, he can go pro.
Okay, so he's draft eligible. Then, yeah, I think he's probably the only one that it takes a special caliber of running back to get in to break through that top 15 first half of the first round of the NFL draft anymore. more times than not, you're not going to see a running back drafted in the first round.
Right.
He's one of them that will. I mean, I saw the stat. It was like he's got 1,000 yards rushing, or
yes,
600. What was it? It's like 600 yards rushing to lead the country, and in second place is Ashton Genty with yards after contact being 500 something.
The the leading rusher in college football with 1,081 yards right now is Ashton Genty through 6 games. The second leader rusher is Ashton Genty with 868 yards after contact. Like the guy is
wild.
That's wild. Like this, like he's 300 yards, 400 yards ahead of the second place person alone. And the man is standing there like Michael Myers, like not even in a ready position, just standing there like he's in the grocery line, and then hits a 35-yard touchdown. Like just unbelievable athlete.
It's very like Derrick Henry's that way. He just stands up or Nick Chubb always stood up so straight in the backfield. You know, it's incredible because it's not an offensive line creation because he's averaging over 10 yards a carry. It's just all 75-yard touchdown runs. Wow. And it's not open running lanes. No. It is very much like Reggie Bush-esque.
It looks like the film, because he plays in the Mountain West, it looks like the film of Derrick Henry in high school. Like people are trying to tackle him high, and he just bounces off and gains momentum. Like on that the first touchdown run against Utah State, his first carry of the game was a 65-yard touchdown run, and he broke 6 tackles in a 10, 15-yard span, and then just turned on the gas. And then, like I said, that one play where he literally, if you haven't seen it, look it up on Twitter, look it up, Ashton Genty, Michael Myers. He's standing there with his hands by his side like a mummy, just standing there. Ball is snap, he takes the ball, 35-yard house call. Like, guy is electric, man. He's so good.
In Corinth, Mississippi, if you played at the Sportsplex growing up, everybody knows. If you played at small town anywhere, everybody knows your team. You go and you play tackle football in elementary school at the park, but there's always that one black kid that there's only one on every other team or something like that, and they're just like handing the ball, and he's just like running around everybody. Like it's just obvious that they're just way more athletic than anybody else.
Yeah.
And that's what Ashton Genty looks like.
He's amazing. He's just the most athletic guy on any field that he steps on. Ashton Genty is the real deal. Real versus counterfeit. There will only be 2 undefeated football teams in the college football playoffs. Only 2.
I don't know if there'll be 2, if I'm being honest with you. I'm going to say that's real. Actually, no. I'm going to say it's counterfeit. So, because what you're running into is you've got Texas, Ohio State, Oregon, Miami, and I guess Penn State, that's
Iowa State's undefeated. BYU's undefeated. Some of those lower down teams, but at the top.
But Oregon is going to play Ohio State. Texas is playing Alabama or playing Georgia. And so it's very possible that there's 1 or 2 at most. And when you get to like the Penn States and stuff, I don't know what their schedule is, but even a one loss Oregon is probably going to, I'd prefer them over an undefeated Penn State with their schedule.
Yeah, Penn State's the only ranked team Penn State has left is Ohio State at number 2. They've got USC, Wisconsin, Washington, Purdue, Minnesota, Maryland, otherwise. So their schedule's a cakewalk. If you don't beat Ohio State, you're not relevant to me.
But it's very possible that Oregon beats Ohio State beats Penn State, and boom, there's no undefeated team in the Big Ten.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it absolutely
could happen.
Alabama beat Georgia, Georgia beat Texas, no undefeated team in the SEC. Like, that's very possible. And if Iowa State goes undefeated, I don't care.
Exactly. If they come from the background, Iowa State, BYU, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
2 more real quick. Real versus counterfeit. Michigan's title window is over.
Oh, that's absolute.
Not just this year, but I'm talking about like their dynasty that they had under Harbaugh. It's over.
No, it left when Harbaugh left. And it also left because of the sanctions that they've been given. And then they hired the interim. Never hired the interim. Like, he's a Band-Aid. He's not going to take you to the promised land. He's there just to get you through purgatory here.
Yeah.
And lastly, you lost to Washington, and you almost lost to Minnesota the week before.
Yeah, exactly. Lastly, and I'm curious your take on this because y'all play them this weekend, but I don't know what to do with LSU. I don't understand. They're 4-1. Are they good? Are they not? Are they real? I know we'll find out this weekend. They have a hellacious schedule coming up because they still have to play A&M, Alabama, and Oklahoma outside of Ole Miss this weekend. So they've got a rough stretch to finish. But what is LSU? Are they good?
I don't think we know. To be honest with you and to cop out a little bit, their one losses to USC. USC's kind of come back down to earth pretty sharply. And I think LSU is a worse version of what LSU was last year. Their offense is good. Last year, their offense was great. Their defense still stinks. Now, they're good enough to beat anybody any day, but they're going to have to play a perfect game to beat a team that they're underdogs against. Yeah. And I love the matchup like with Ole Miss this week. I think Ole Miss matches up extremely well with them. Ole Miss's defense has turned out to be elite. They've got the players. They held South Carolina to 3 points, and it wasn't even a pretty 3 points for South Carolina. Ole Miss should have scored 40 against South Carolina. Late in the game, you missed some open guys deep, which is slightly concerning, but they just whipped them in Columbia last week. Now you go to Baton Rouge. LSU's going to score a little bit. I still like Garrett Nussmeier. I like his pro prospects probably a little bit more than I like his college prospects right now.
That's fair.
Like,
that's fair.
He's a really big dude who can make any throw. He's just a little inaccurate in certain spots, and he doesn't have the weapons that Jane Daniels had last year.
For sure.
And we're going to talk about those two guys in our NFL segment that I've got
coming up.
So I think that you're going to see a lot about LSU, but I'll tell you this. If Ole Miss was playing LSU in Oxford, if Ole Miss was playing LSU at noon in Baton Rouge, I think Ole Miss would beat them 10 points.
Yeah.
It makes me a little nervous being 6:30.
We'll get to that here in a few minutes. We'll make our picks. But real quick, let's move through the Dunzo list. Drew always has a team or a coach or a player who he is out on after a week. Uncle Buck, hit us with your Dunzo list. I don't know why it flips us, but it does.
All right. So I got a compliment Saturday. I went and watched the game with my cousin, Kirk. Everybody knows Cousin Kirk and Cousin David. I got a compliment from Cousin Kirk. And he said, you said something on that show that I thought was one of the funniest, most profound things that I've ever heard. And I was like, obviously, I have no idea what you're talking about because I don't write anything down. It just comes off the top of my dome. And so it was in the segment where I was talking about Louisville. For the second straight week last week, I picked Louisville. Despite Louisville in the first week against Notre Dame losing after I picked them, I said, if there's one thing that I know, if there's one thing that I've learned about myself, it's that I'll never learn. Give me Louisville. And I took Louisville again, and they beat me again. So, yeah, I'm done with Louisville. I'm done. So, if there's one thing I've learned in my life, it's that I'll never learn, and I picked Louisville again. And so I was like, maybe that's something that I need to put on a T-shirt somewhere. One thing that I've learned is that I'll never learn.
I'll never learn. That's it, man. And so – Uncle Buck, we'll go through our college football playoff prediction. I think you went first last week. I'm going to go first this week. We'll throw them up here on the screen. We'll talk through what that looks like. So my new top 12, I have no change. I put Texas back at the top. I had Alabama number 1. I felt like Texas is the best team in the country. Ohio State's number 2, simply because they don't play in the SEC. I still have BYU at 3, winning the Big 12, and Miami winning the ACC at 4. In the 12-5 matchup, call me a Patriot, call me an American homer, call me what you want. I love the Army-Navy game. It's one of my favorite parts of college football, and I want that game to matter. I like Ashton Genty and Boise State. I have no problem if they're the team that gets in as a group of 5, but I hope they lose one more so that Army-Navy game is a play-in for the college football playoff. That's just, to me, that's American's apple pie. I'm freaking here for that.
It was something that I saw. Can't they play for a conference championship and then play each other the week after championship week? Army and Navy?
They do have some kind of stipulation in there. Yes, it's something funky like that, and I don't know what it is, but it is something funky. So. But either way, I want that game to matter. And then Navy would play Georgia and lose by 100. But it would still be fun for the U.S. to be represented there. I picked Navy over Army because my grandfather, he was in the Marines and always erred on the side of the Navy because of that. So Super 5 granddad, go Navy, beat Army. Georgia at number 5, moved them up after Alabama's loss in the 9-8 game. I hate it, but I got Penn State. I mean, they with their schedule coming in with one loss being Ohio State, they're probably going to backdoor in. Same with Notre Dame, man. I moved them up a little bit because their schedule is so soft, and we know that the media loves them and will have them there. Yes, they lost to Vanderbilt. Should preclude you from the top 12, but it is Alabama. They can win out and still be there. The SEC is funky. There's a way that they can still play for an SEC championship game with the loss to Vanderbilt. I think it's going to look poorly on them, but I still think they can sneak in, playing Oregon as the 6th seed. My new 2 teams to the top 12. Mike Elko has A&M sneakily at 5-1 with a good schedule coming up. Their 2 toughest games remaining are at home. They have LSU at home and Texas at home. Drew, you can't tell me that a one-loss A&M team, with wins over LSU and Texas, that don't get into the college football playoff. You do that, you're playing for an SEC championship game. Right. Number 2, if your 2 losses are early to Notre Dame, who's in the college football playoff here for me, and your other loss is Texas, the last game of the year, and it's competitive, I still think a 2-loss A&M team gets in.
They definitely have an argument.
And then Iowa State, they're undefeated. They have a very easy schedule coming up. They don't have to play a lot of the big dogs coming up for the rest of the way down the season. I like the football that they're playing. They've already beat their big rival in Iowa, which is typically a stumbling block for them. Listen, they could finish out the season. Their toughest game left is Utah and Kansas State. The last 2 games of the season, neither of those seem very scary at this point. They could finish the season undefeated and be in the college football playoff. So that's my top 12.
Yeah, and if they go undefeated, then they're going to be the 4 seed. You know, they're going to
fair.
They're going to get a bye. You know?
Right, for sure.
So, yeah, I like that. I had some change-ups in mine too, including one that I thought I was going to have by myself. So, oh man, I forgot to change my 12 seed. It's obviously not Memphis. It's Boise State. Boise State's my 12 seed. Ashton Genty is just that
amazing.
Yeah. 5, Georgia. They're my second best SEC school now that Alabama lost to Vanderbilt. My top 4 didn't change, by the way. Number 9, I've got Ole Miss playing Alabama. The thing about Ole Miss is that it's still all in front of them. There's 2 teams that benefited the most by chaos last week, and that's Ole Miss and that's Notre Dame. Alabama taking a loss, Tennessee taking a loss. It just worked out swimmingly for Ole Miss. Michigan lost, Missouri lost. All these teams that are in front of Ole Miss lost, and so I think that just put Ole Miss back to square one, basically.
Yep.
They've got Bama. I'm with you. I don't see Bama losing again. If Bama loses twice in the regular season, then I'll change my mind later.
And Kalen DeBoer might get fired.
A&M, I was super impressed with A&M. They just waxed Missouri on Saturday. And Connor Wegman played like everybody, like Texas A&M talked about Connor Wegman going into the season. He was 100%. Efficient. He was quick with his decision-making. Man, they just unloaded on Missouri. Missouri, who I warned everybody, was like, they are not scoring. Like, this team has got real problems. Just got beat 41-6 by A&M. And Oregon, number 6, win or lose this Saturday against Ohio State, they're not going to drop out of my top 12 unless it's a blowout.
Exactly.
Clemson, don't look now.
Yeah.
But Clemson is murdering people. They are just laying waste to everybody they've played. And I'll be honest with you, after that Georgia game against Alabama where they had that massive comeback, that loss just doesn't look. I know it was lopsided. The score was lopsided, but it got away from them.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very possible that we spoke too soon on Clemson and kind of reveled in their misery. And because it happened in week 1, we forgot about them until right now where I'm going to bring them back up.
I mean, you're not wrong. Real quick, Clemson's remaining schedule has one ranked team, and that's Pitt. They could finish the regular season with that one lone loss being to Georgia. You get a shot to upset Miami for an ACC championship, and then you're in the top 4 once again. I mean, this.
Yeah, and my last one is Penn State, and I don't need to really say anything else more about them. But I think that that we're gonna. The ACC is weak. Miami is just ripe to lose. I mean, they just are. They've been saved so many times, but against Cal, they got saved against who did they play late last week? The Hail Mary that was called
Virginia
back.
Tech.
Yeah,
that was supposed to be, their schedule's fairly soft going forward, but they could, this would be you're out on Louisville. They're on your Dunzo list. They play Louisville on the 19th. That could very easily be a game that they lose. They still got Florida State. They still got Duke. Like
they almost lost to Virginia Tech and Cal, which is my point. Like it's not that they've lost to teams that or haven't almost lost to teams that aren't good already. Like bad teams can beat them.
Yeah, it feels like this bye week's coming at the right time for them. They're off this weekend. They needed it to kind of recoup and after two close wins to teams that they didn't need to be close with. We'll see what they come back with against Louisville in 2 weeks. And so Miami feels like the team that's going to get upset.
Real quick, I was listening to a podcast. AJ McCarron was on it, and he talks about quarterback play basically, and he made the comment like Cam Ward does a lot of things that impress you, but he does some absolute stupid stuff. He does. Like he threw a pick six on a throwing off his back foot across the field to the other sideline and just easy pick six. He does stupid stuff. And so Cam Ward in high leverage situations, I don't know that I trust.
Agreed. I don't have the stats from last week. I'm a terrible podcast co-host, but I'm on the road. They're on my desk at home. I wrote them down. I didn't put them in the app. So Uncle Buck did win last week. I just don't know what the tally or how bad it was. So there's that.
Yeah, we all knew that. At this point, it's just unfair.
So we got 5 games this week that we're going to go through real quick. We've got a lot of commentary about these teams already. First up, Texas is a 14.5-point road favorite against Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry. This feels like a game that's always closer. Oklahoma fears God. Texas fears Oklahoma. It's a big rivalry game. It could be a sneaky, tough test for Texas. Quinn Ewers is back. What do you think, Uncle Buck?
14.5 in a neutral site rivalry game, I'm always kind of scared to lay those points. So I'm going to go with Oklahoma here. I like their defense. I thought their defense played good against Auburn. I thought their defense played good against who did they play?
Tennessee.
Yeah. I thought their defense played amazing against Nico in that Tennessee game. So I'm going to take the 14.5 points and take Oklahoma and expect kind of a ball control kind of offense with their running quarterback that they've got now and a pretty salty defense.
Yeah. For parity, I am going to go Texas. I think this is going to be a one-score game late, and where Oklahoma struggles is protecting the football and moving the ball late. I can see this being like 17-14 with about 5 minutes to go, and they throw a pick six, and Texas wins 24-14 or 27-14. Like they kind of pull away late. This is a one-possession game, but they gets out of hand kind of late. And so I'm going to take Texas to cover. I think they're very good. Quinn Ewers is back and got a lot to prove after Arch played well against the Dogs. But Texas's defense is just so good, man. And I think Oklahoma, as good as that running quarterback is going to be, I think they're going to struggle moving the football.
Well, and what's in the forefront of my mind is Texas went 11-1, went into the college football playoff, was a play away from being in the finals, and their one loss was to an 8-4 Oklahoma team.
I mean, absolutely. It's a thing, man. That's a real thing.
Oklahoma has won 5 out of the last 6 Red River rivalry matchups.
That's wild.
And, I'm going to go with the underdog here.
There you go.
And just because it's also what I want to happen. I want to root for Oklahoma in this game. Yeah.
Chaos. Up next, I'll go first. Ohio State is a 3-point road favorite at Autzen Stadium against the Ducks. It's a blackout. That's a long way to travel from Columbus. Dylan Gabriel feels like he's figured it out. Dan Lanning has that defense playing better. Each week, Oregon is getting better and better and better. And this is Ohio State's first test. This is the first time they're truly going to face somebody of their caliber. This feels like a game that Ohio State will probably win, but I'm taking the Ducks to win at home, to be their first year in the Big Ten. Ohio State's toughest game so far has been Marshall. They gave up 14 points to Marshall and still won 49-14. They played Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall, Michigan State, and Iowa. That's their schedule so far. They beat the brakes off of all of them. That's it. That's going to be a raucous environment Saturday night. Give me the Ducks to win in primetime, baby.
Straight up.
Yeah, straight. I think they win. I think they win, man.
I think this is probably the sexiest matchup of the Saturday. I'm really looking forward to this. I hate the fact that it's kicking off at the exact same time as the Ole Miss LSU game.
Yeah.
But I could see this going anyway. I want to root for Oregon. That's why I'm going to pick Oregon. I like to pick the teams that I want to win. I don't hedge. Like, I'm all in. Like, that's me. I'm just going to be all in on one team. I don't hedge my bets. I lost the game, but I won some money, so I feel better. No, I'm all or nothing. So give me the Ducks. I love watching night games in Autzen. Yeah. Autzen's raucous.
It's going to be rowdy.
I think they get too much pub on their uniforms, but it's their stick, and that excites them. And so I'm in on it.
And this also, is the first of this uniform that they wore, so it's
and it's the first time that this is the Big Ten matchup. You know, like
it's prove it time.
Yeah, I kind of want to just see them prove it. You know, Ohio State, for as long as I've been watching college football, has only had to worry about either a Michigan or Penn State or Michigan State. It's in spurts. Like, they've never had more than one competitive game in a season. So,
and Oregon's already been in a dogfight. They had to fight to beat Boise State, and then their margin of victory has steadily gotten more and more and more as Gabriel's gotten comfortable in that offense. Oregon's been in a fight, and Ohio State hasn't. If Oregon comes out and gets ahead like 10-0 or 14-3 pretty early, this one it might cruise because Austin's going to get rowdy, and that game Oregon might pull away.
That's fair.
All right. This is for you. Here's your chance. Ole Miss, 3.5-point road favorite at LSU. It's a 6:30 kick in Death Valley. As Les Miles famously said, where dreams go to die. What do you think your Rebs are going to do Saturday night, Drew?
Ole Miss has not won in Death Valley since 2008. That was Jevin Steed. That was Houston Nutt. You know, that was a magical season out of nowhere. I think that Ole Miss is better than LSU. I actually think Ole Miss is more talented than LSU. I think that if this game was played at 11 o'clock in the afternoon or on a neutral site, that Ole Miss would win by 2 scores. So I'm going to take Ole Miss minus 3.5. And I'm totally willing to come in here next Friday and be like, listen, Death Valley happened. I don't think that's going to happen. And I hate Death Valley. But I think Ole Miss is just a better team. I don't predict chaos. I don't, like I've talked about on the show before. You always want to say Ole Miss could go to Fayetteville and lose. I'm like, yeah, but they shouldn't. And so that's why I'm going to pick it. You know, Ole Miss should beat LSU. They went and got it right. They have a new lease on life after going and dominating at South Carolina and then seeing Giants fall. Everything opened back up for them. You could tell they exhaled Saturday afternoon after that game was over and got to enjoy with everybody else in the country, Commodores walking down Broadway with field goal posts. And so they've got a new lease on life now. LSU's got one loss against USC, but if it weren't for a stupid crackback block on on LSU's quarterback after an interception, they lose at South Carolina in week 2. And so I like Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss's defense is one of the top defenses in the country. They lead the country in sacks. The only question I have is Trey Harris. The only thing that could sway me, rather, is if Trey Harris doesn't play. He's trending towards playing. He's got a weird little ankle, Achilles soreness tweak there. If Trey Harris doesn't play, that makes me quite a bit more nervous because everything in the offense goes through Trey Harris.
Yeah, as it should.
And so give me Ole Miss. Give me Trey Harris healthy. Give me the Magnolia Bowl trophy, which is, if you haven't seen the Magnolia Bowl trophy, I wish they would just quit it because it's the ugliest trophy in the world.
Give it to Tigers. I'm rooting for chaos. I want this to happen. I want this to be chaotic. I am rooting for the Tigers.
You're rooting against the Rebs.
I want LSU to win. So give me the Tigers at home. Vandy at Kentucky. Vandy's riding high off their magical win over Alabama. Kentucky is a 14.5-point favorite in that game. I just don't know that there's going to be enough points scored for it to be a 14.5-point game. This game could be 13-12. This game could be 12-9. Like, it could be an ugly football game unless Diego Pavia happens. I'm going to take Vanderbilt. I don't know that I'm going to take them to win outright. I think they'll at least cover. Nah, screw it. Give me the Commodores, man. I think they're going to win. Give me Vandy to win. You know what? I'm not going to hedge. I talked myself into it. Give me Vanderbilt to win. I know I can take them to cover, but give me them to win outright, baby. I'm not going to be a coward.
We're making note of this because I was over here about to take Kentucky, but now I'm thinking about just taking the doors and the points, just because you want them straight up, you know. Listen, as an Ole Miss fan, you want Kentucky to go win and cover. Like, Vandy's a fun story. Everybody's rooting for Vandy now, and for a good reason. But you need that, as an Ole Miss fan, you need that Kentucky loss to be validated, you know. Mm-hmm. I think that 14.5 points is way too much against this Vanderbilt team. And so give me the doors plus 14.5 on the road at Kroger Field against Kentucky. I think that I like the doors. I think they ride high. I think I'm just Diego Pavia is a guy that I want leading my football team. You know, they've got us head-scratching loss against Georgia State. So I don't know what to make of the team, but I'm just betting on Diego Pavia at this point.
I like it. All right, last one. We have got Florida at Tennessee. Tennessee's a 14.5-point home favorite. That feels like a lot of points at home, Drew. What do you think? Do you think Billy Napier saves his job and beats Tennessee? Do you think 14.5 is a lot, or does Nico Amalavea figure it out on his home court and beat the brakes off of Florida?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think we talked in previous episodes, hot seat being cooler. This is the matchup because Tennessee fans are not happy with Josh Heupel after that Arkansas road loss. And Florida, on the other hand, is, you know, they beat UCF, which they're a solid team. They're playing pretty good football. You know, you're grading them on a curve now because of how terribly the season started. But Billy Napier's job, in my opinion, is safer now than it was 2 weeks ago. And Josh Heupel may just be feeling a little bit more pressure this week than he was 7 days ago. So I think that you say, what's the spread right now?
14.5.
14.5 in Gainesville? No, in Tennessee.
In Knoxville, yeah.
In Knoxville. Give me the Vols. Give me the Vols. They get it right. I've often said, like, if you've got two quarterbacks, you don't have one, and they are doing a pretty good job of playing both quarterbacks, but I don't feel like that works against a good team. I do think that Tennessee is better than what they looked last week, and I put maybe a hot take. I put a lot of that on Arkansas.
Yeah,
Arkansas, that defensive coordinator is a hot shot, young defensive coordinator. And you've still got Petrino, who can apparently make any offense at least move downhill.
That's it.
So give me the Vols minus 14.5 at home against Florida.
The last time Florida beat Tennessee in Knoxville, they wore these blue helmets. Oh, and I just hit like an old man. They wore these blue helmets.
Love them.
Right? They're wearing them Saturday. I don't think they beat Tennessee. Tennessee's defense is too good to let Florida score a lot of points. I don't know that Florida's going to score enough. I don't know that Tennessee is either. Nico showed me some concerns of being a young quarterback making poor decisions. I don't think Florida wins. I think Florida covers on the road. I think this is like a 21-17 or a 14-10 type game. I don't know that it's going to be high scoring, and if it is, that favors Tennessee. But if Florida can keep it in the mud, Arkansas gave you the recipe. You just slowly slog down the field and you keep Nico out of rhythm and on the sideline. And Josh Heupel, I had to talk my buddy Joey Cunningham off the cliff multiple times this past week because for the last 2 weeks, he said Heupel has played less and less and less aggressive. And that's what happened. That's how you get beat. And that's what's happened to them. They played less and less and less aggressive and they got beat. So I think that Florida covers, but I think Tennessee wins at home.
That's fair. That's probably the most likely outcome.
Yeah. That's our college football for the week, Drew. We'll see how we pick against the spread. We'll see what happens here. I think this is my week that I make my comeback, so we'll see. But let's transition to the NFL. We've got some NFL to talk. We always start with our real versus counterfeit in the NFL. So Uncle Buck, I'm going to cue it up to you, man. It's been a wild NFL season so far. A lot of parity and still no great tight ends, apparently.
Right. And so we're going to start with the team that's currently playing Thursday Night Football right now. The San Francisco 49ers are playing the Seattle Seahawks. And don't look now. If I'd have told you here in October that the first place team and the fourth place team in the NFC West are playing each other on Thursday night, and it is the Seahawks versus the 49ers, would you have said the 49ers are the 4th seed and the Seattle Seahawks are the 1 seed?
I thought Gino's 1 year was done last year.
Yeah. So what I'm asking you, real or counterfeit, the San Francisco 49ers are CMC away from being good. All they're missing is Christian McCaffrey.
I'm going to say that's counterfeit. I think that obviously CMC helps, right? They're running back poor right now because Jordan Mason went down tonight with a shoulder and didn't return.
He's back in.
He did go back in. Okay.
Yeah, he's on my fantasy team.
Yeah, he went down early with a shoulder thing, went to the locker room, like he got hurt. Debo's been out for a few weeks. Their passing game is kind of non-existent. Brock Purdy's kind of come down to earth. And like when you've got Brandon Ayuk, you've got Debo Samuels, you've got George Kittle, Juwan Jennings is having a monster year. Yeah. You should be able to throw the football better than what the 49ers are doing. So there's some concern there that they're a little bit, I think they're very running game dependent. And yeah, sure, CMC is going to make them vastly better, but I think there's more issues there than just missing CMC.
Yeah, I think that too. I think CMC alleviates a lot of it because game script goes back to what they're comfortable with.
Exactly.
Because right now, what's alarming to me is that they're losing leads late. Yeah. Like that's not a team that has been to 2 Super Bowls in the last 4 years. They don't give up late leads.
Right.
But they've done it several times, including a bad loss to Arizona last week.
Exactly.
Right. This is the last one I've got. And so some of the big news this week is that the New England Patriots are going to go to Drake May. He's going to start his first game as an NFL quarterback for the New England Patriots this Sunday. So real or counterfeit, Drake May should spend the whole season developing on the bench. It's a long season.
That's real, man. That's why I'm like, leave Will Levis in and let him just run it into the ground. Like at this point, what's it going to do to throw Drake May into a situation with a bad offensive line, a bad football team? They're just not good. What point is it to wreck his confidence? We've seen it. We've talked about that on this show. We've seen it with Bryce Young. We've seen it with Sam Darnold prior to this MVP season that he's having in Minnesota. We've seen it with Matt Leinart, Mark Sanchez. We've seen all these rookie quarterbacks get thrown in, Malik Willis, Will Levis, get thrown in these situations they have no business starting, and it ruins their confidence in their career. I at this point, man, just ride Jacoby Brissett out, let Drake May learn the offense, develop on the bench, develop in practice. There's no sense running him out and getting him just murdered because, look, man, the reality is this is a lost season. The Patriots are 1-4. They're not going to come back. They're not going to make a run. They don't have the tools to get better. It's ugly. They're playing the Texans this weekend. They're going to get absolutely murdered. Yeah. Hammer the over, hammer the Texans. It's not going to be close. I think he should stay on the bench.
I tend to agree with you. And it's so counterculture to what is going on in the NFL with young quarterbacks, especially first-round quarterbacks. But I just think the more that I see rookies struggle like Bryce Young, the more I'm just kind of like, man, just let them take your time with them.
Yeah.
They're an investment. And a lot of times you just need to treat them with kid gloves. You need to train them up and not just sink or swim. That's not always the right way to go. Yes, CJ Stroud was incredible last year. Yes, Jaden Daniels is incredible. But they are playing with training wheels. That offense, Cliff Kingsbury, they scheme it up perfectly for him to not make mistakes and then to take some shots, and he throws a good deep ball.
Yeah.
I hate to see another quarterback just ruined
Yeah.
because you're right. New England's offensive line is the worst in football. He's just going to get smoked.
It's not going to get better anytime soon. And so they're going to absolutely just wreck him, just like these countless of rookie quarterbacks. And I hate that. Not that I think Drake May is going to be this incredible NFL quarterback, but the odds are stacked against him, man. It's just not going to go well.
They're definitely going to be stacked against him if he goes 1-8 the rest of the way, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because it's very much a what have you done for me lately kind of league. And if he goes 1-8, there's going to be hard to come back for that fan base for sure.
Well, you're going to start looking at like, well, who's the next quarterback? This quarterback went 1-8, you know, even though it may not be the quarterback's fault at all. Then you start feeling all this pressure. Yeah. And I'm just like, you cannot raise a quarterback that way. You cannot train a quarterback that way. You've got to have confidence. You've got to give him room to progress and grow.
That's it, man. That's exactly right. And I think that that's a poor decision. So at this point in the show, we always give you our bull and our bear market players, teams, fantasy advice. Uncle Buck and I are fantasy savants. Not really, but we're playing fantasy football. The Berkeley Mouthpiece is having a rough stretch right now. We are falling on hard times with Isaiah Pacheco going on the IR. And then, like, I got outbid. I was trying to get David Singletary. Like, I had, like, all these, plans, and they all fell by the wayside in the way we do our free agency, which I do like, but I didn't get running back help. Struggling at the running back position. Aaron Jones on a bye. So maybe you may or may not want to take this advice because there are no refunds. We'll get to that here in a little bit. But Uncle Buck, who are you bullish on? Who is on a upswing for you in fantasy in the NFL?
Let me pull my notes out real quick because I forgot. Oh, yeah. I hinted at this earlier. LSU rookie receivers. I mean, my goodness. Brian Thomas, top 10 in the NFL in fantasy points. Malik Neighbors, top 5 in fantasy points in the NFL as rookies on not good teams with not great quarterback play. Volume, man, and they're getting all of it. I love both of them. I've got Brian Thomas in both leagues. It's a risk I took. I went up for him in both leagues, and man, it's coming up aces for Mystic Dan Campbell here, my team. Despite being very Miami Dolphins heavy and taking Christian McCaffrey with my number 1 pick, I'm sitting here currently at 3-2 and just waiting on my knight in shining armor, Christian McCaffrey, to get healthy to take me to a back-to-back.
A new level. So for me, I am bullish on running backs in new cities. You look at Saquon Barkley. You look at Josh Jacobs. You look at Derrick Henry. You look at who's the other one? DeAndre Swift. You look at Aaron Jones, Tony Pollard. Running backs that change locales in the offseason are having really good seasons. Derrick Henry has been dominant rushing the football for the Ravens. The number 1 running back in fantasy football this week in our league is Saquon Barkley behind that Philly O-line. In the top 4, you have Saquon and Derrick Henry. In the top 10, you also have DeAndre Swift and Tony Pollard. Like, you've got these guys that are playing at a high level. Sometimes a change of scenery is what you need. A new scheme, a new system, new O-line, whatever the case may be. Josh Jacobs is having a revitalization for Green Bay with catching the ball out of the backfield, and he pairs really well with Jordan Love in the RPO. David Montgomery, even though he changed a year prior, has looked really good in Detroit. I think sometimes a change of scenery is what you need, and it works well for running backs in the NFL right now.
Yeah, I agree with all those. You know, running backs, the trend is always like, it's the most easy to replace position in football. And what you've seen is all these teams that are making decisions to go away from these running backs that are going to make a lot of money, they've actually benefited the teams that pay them all the money. You know, Derrick Henry has been great for Baltimore because Tennessee didn't want to pay him. Aaron Jones has been great for Minnesota because Green Bay didn't want to pay him. And then Green Bay went and paid Josh Jacobs, who's been great.
He's been great.
because Vegas did not want to pay him. Like, it goes in circles here. And right now, they've made a lot of believers out of some general managers that were not believers.
I mean, you think about, Drew, when you had all these running backs trying to petition to get paid. You know, Derrick Henry was kind of being the voice for him. What was that, 2 seasons ago? We need to be paid. You know, we're getting cut, blah, blah, blah. We're still the heartbeat. Well, look what's happening, right? The teams that are winning, running the football again, and these running backs are having revitalization. Yes, the Eagles aren't winning a ton of games, but Saquon Barkley's been amazing for them so far.
Yeah,
Austin Eckler's coming back from injury, but he's going to be amazing in that Washington offense. Like,
I'm not going to go that far.
Change the scenery. I mean, hey, listen, I hope I got Brian Robinson in another league. I hope Brian Robinson's still the man. Yeah.
So,
who you out on? What's your bear market?
Listen, the Jets made a head coach change. Sounds like the owner came in and fired the head coach. Breece Hall has been one of the biggest disappointments this year.
Tell me about it.
I ridiculed you for taking Saquon over Breece Hall in our league. I was wrong. I'm not going to apologize. I'm just going to say I was wrong. But a lot of people were kind of wondering, like, does this change anything for Breece Hall? Robert Saleh was a defensive-minded coach. I don't think that changes anything. But then to go a step further today, old boy that is the OC that got fired after 1 year at Denver. He was Nathaniel Hackett.
Thank you.
Yeah, Nathaniel Hackett was the OC. He's Aaron Rodgers' buddy. And he was going to call the plays, and that wasn't going to change. I was like, okay, so I'm still out on Breece Hall. Then they demoted him. And so, like, I don't know what's going on in New York, but it's kind of tumultuous a little bit. Aaron Rodgers doesn't look good. Breece Hall is not being efficient. I don't like it. If he has one big week and you're a Breece Hall owner, I would try to capitalize on the trade market with him because I don't get good vibes out of that situation at all.
No, he's been bad. And you stole one of my, like, that was going to be my bear market. I'll come up with something else, but I've got Breece Hall in another league. And like over the last 4 weeks, he's gotten 4 points, has been his highest outing. And it's tough, man. Like, I'm glad I passed on him in our league for Saquon. I think Saquon has been much, much better by that O-line. I don't know that it's going to get any better anytime soon. What a dysfunctional fan base, dysfunctional team at one Jets drive up there in New York. Their DC is now their interim head coach. They went from one defensive-minded coach to another. It's just not getting better. The O-line is not good. Their defense has been okay, but that Jets team is completely dysfunctional. Drew, I talked about this a couple weeks ago, but I'm going to hammer it home again here since you stole mine. Do you know who the number one fantasy tight end in our league is right now, statistically? Who's the number one tight end?
Is it still Isaiah Likely after week one?
No, it's not.
I have no idea.
It's Brock Bowers for the Raiders. He's the number one. Your top three are you've got Brock Bowers, George Kittle is number 2, and then Tucker Kraft is number 3 from fantasy stats. Like
Tyler Kraft.
Yeah. Tucker Kraft for the Green Bay Packers.
I'm thinking Tyler Kroft. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Tucker Kraft. I'm looking at it right now. That's your top 3 tight ends, right? Like you've got, your big names are just not there. Jared Goff has more receiving fantasy points than Mark Andrews. Like he's got 6.7 and Mark Andrews got 6.5. Travis Kelce had a decent game the other night on Monday Night Football for the Chiefs in that win over the Saints, but he still hasn't looked the part. Laporta has not been good. Hawkinson is coming back for Minnesota. He's a kind of a consistent tight end for him. I hope that continues because I picked him up late as a flyer in fantasy. But, man, if you use an early round draft pick on the tight end, that's a bummer. That's a real bummer because it has not been the year for tight ends in the NFL. It doesn't look like it's changing anytime soon. I mean, Sam Laporta is 23rd right now. His highest game is 9.3 last week against Seattle. Jason Ferguson for the Cowboys has been better, getting double digits in most games except for when he was out against New Orleans. But, like, your big-name tight ends just aren't there this year. So I'm out on tight ends. If you can play without a tight end, it might be a better strategy to try and trade a tight end for a receiver.
Yeah, because I don't even know who you trade for at this point. You just got to find somebody with a floor, with like a floor of like 6 points, and you're probably set, Yeah. One more that I'm just going to gripe about. I did some research. I've got Amari Cooper, and I'm like, why in the world does Amari Cooper suck? And it turns out like that he's leading. He's like one of the leaders in the NFL in targets. He's gotten 20 targets over the last 3 weeks, but he's only gotten over 10 points one time. And upon digging and researching, 40% of the throws in his direction are accurate. Like Deshaun Watson is just horrible.
problem.
Give me
Yeah.
Jameis Winston. I
Yes.
want J-Mo in
Yes.
Cleveland. Get
Yes.
that serial offender out of here.
Yes.
And most importantly, get somebody in there that can throw the ball to Mark Cooper accurately.
That's it. Hey, listen, and when you get Jameis Winston playing, you get Jameis Winston sound bites, and I'm here for it, man. That dude is amazing. He's gonna have a great future in like world wrestling or something because like his banter, his dialogue is amazing, man. Amazing. Give it to me. Well, Uncle Buck, another great show, man.
I don't know if I lost you or you lost me.
Not sure what happened there. Sorry about the lag there. I think my internet went out here in Birmingham, Alabama. But hey, if you're still here, this is a free app. You don't pay for this. You don't pay for this podcast. And there are no refunds for what you hear here.
Yeah, because as you can tell with the $2 Sports Show, you always get what you pay for. I hope everybody has a good weekend. Sorry for the little technical difficulties there, but if you made it through the little bit of lag and just looking at me looking confused on the screen, then I appreciate it. And so you didn't miss anything, though, if you bailed. So have a good weekend, everybody. You always get what you pay for with the $2 Sports Show. See you next
Thank you for listening to the $2 Sports Show. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. Also, like and subscribe to Bluff City Media's YouTube page. For comprehensive coverage of all things Memphis sports, head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co and find out how you can become an insider. We will see